Jacob had always believed life had a strange way of testing the heart just when a person thought they had nothing left to give. As a single dad working double shifts at a construction site, he often felt like he was racing against time. Time to earn, time to care for little Emily, and time to keep the broken pieces of their life stitched together after her mother left. On the morning of Emily's most important school exam, Jacob woke up early, already rehearsing all the encouragement he would give her, because she had studied late into the night and wanted to make him proud. But fate twisted their day before the sun had fully risen. On their walk to school, they found a woman on the roadside, standing beside a luxury SUV that looked entirely out of place on their dusty neighborhood street. Her ankle was twisted, her clothes muddied, and her face pale but determined. Emily was the first to rush to her, despite the risk of missing her exam. "Are you okay, ma'am?" she asked gently, and the woman managed a nod, though pain was written across every line of her expression. Without hesitation, Emily insisted they help her get to safety. Jacob tried to decline. Time was running, the exam mattered, but one look at the stranger's trembling hands changed his mind. Emily supported the woman like she was helping an injured bird, offering comfort, guiding her to their small home nearby. The woman couldn't believe a child was giving her strength. Hours passed in a blur of first aid, warm tea, and borrowed blankets. By the time the woman recovered enough to speak clearly, the exam's time had long passed. Emily didn't mention it, didn't complain, didn't even sigh. She simply smiled and said helping someone in trouble was more important. And as the woman watched that smile, something inside her, something burdened, exhausted, and lonely, began to unravel. The stranger introduced herself simply as Mara, though she hesitated as if hiding something heavier behind the name. She kept thanking Emily repeatedly, apologizing for making her miss school, but the little girl dismissed it with a bright wave of her hand, as if such sacrifices were normal for her. Jacob felt a growing curiosity about the woman. They rarely saw people like her around their neighborhood. Her SUV alone cost more than everything he had ever owned combined. Emily prepared a bowl of soup using the last bit of groceries they had, and Mara watched the girl with a look that blended admiration with something deeper, regret, maybe. "You're very kind," she murmured. Emily shrugged. "Dad says kindness is free, so I shouldn't be scared to give it." Something softened in Mara's posture, like a wall collapsing quietly. For the rest of the afternoon, she sat at their kitchen table, observing their life, how Jacob checked homework sheets even though he could barely read half the advanced words, how Emily giggled at tiny jokes even though her childhood had been harder than most, and how their tiny home felt warmer than every mansion Mara had ever lived in. When she finally stood to leave, Jacob offered to help fix her car, but just then, her phone buzzed non-stop, messages, missed calls, urgent reminders. Her expression shifted. The exhaustion wasn't from the twisted ankle, it was from a life drowning in pressure. Suddenly, a loud chopper-like sound echoed from the sky, and Mara stiffened. "They're looking for me," she whispered. A helicopter appeared in the distance, approaching fast. Emily's eyes widened with wonder. Jacob stepped outside, shielding his daughter as the wind roared and dust spiraled. The helicopter descended slowly, its blades tearing through the quiet air of their neighborhood. Men in suits jumped out, calling, "Ma'am, the CEO, are you all right?" The word, CEO, hit Jacob like thunder. Mara wasn't just a stranger, she was one of the richest, most powerful women in the city, and she had been rescued not by bodyguards or assistants, but by his little girl who gave away the day of her exam without a second thought. As the men crowded around, offering medics and security, Mara lifted her hand sharply, silencing them. Her eyes remained on Emily, who stood beside Jacob with a shy smile, her hair tousled by the helicopter's wind. The suits stepped back, bewildered, watching as their CEO limped toward the little girl instead of returning to the luxurious aircraft. Mara crouched, ignoring the pain in her ankle. "You helped me when I had no one around. You didn't know who I was, and you didn't care," she said softly. "Not many people do that anymore." Emily blushed and mumbled something about doing the right thing, but Mara gently cupped her cheeks. "Because of you, sweetheart, I remembered what humanity feels like." She rose and turned to Jacob. "Your daughter missed something important today," she said. Jacob nodded quietly, not wanting to make Emily feel guilty. But Mara continued, raising her chin with CEO authority mixed with a surprisingly warm tone. I'd like to make sure she never loses an opportunity again. She signaled one of the men, who immediately brought forward a sleek folder. Inside were scholarship contracts, full school sponsorships, and even special tutoring programs. Jacob stared, overwhelmed. "Ma'am, this is too much," she lifted a hand. "No, Mr. Jacob. It isn't nearly enough. I've spent years surrounded by people who pretend to care, people who only chase money or power. But your daughter, she reminded me what true value looks like." Emily tugged at Jacob's sleeve, whispering, "Dad, it's okay. She just wants to help." Mara smiled. "More than help." She looked at the helicopter, then back to the small home. "I want to offer you both something better. A job for you at one of my development sites, steady pay, safe hours, benefits. And for your daughter," she glanced down at Emily. "A future she deserves." The entire yard felt still, as if the wind itself paused to listen. Jacob's throat tightened. He had always fought life alone, believing no one would ever show up for him and Emily. Now a helicopter sat in his yard, its engine humming like destiny itself, and one of the most influential CEOs in the country stood before him offering a future he never even allowed himself to imagine. Emily hugged Mara's leg tightly, surprising the CEO, who froze for a moment before gently returning the embrace, awkwardly at first, then with a softness that suggested she hadn't been held like that in years. "Thank you for helping my dad by helping me," Emily whispered. Mara blinked away tears. She placed her hand on Emily's back and whispered, "No, thank you, for helping my soul." The suited men gave each other confused glances, unused to witnessing their cold, commanding boss melt like this. Mara cleared her throat and looked at Jacob again, extending her hand, not as a CEO, but as a human being. "Let me take you to somewhere better. Not to change who you are, but to give you space to grow." Jacob hesitated, thinking of their tiny memories in the small home, but he also saw Emily, bright, hopeful, deserving more than life had given her. He took Mara's hand. The moment he did, the tension lifted from his shoulders, as if the world had finally chosen to reward him instead of punish him. Emily cheered, running toward the helicopter with childlike excitement. Mara laughed, a sound even her staff had never heard. And as the three of them stepped toward the aircraft, the dusty yard where they had struggled for years filled with the promise of something new, something earned through kindness, compassion, and a little girl's choice to help a stranger instead of thinking about herself. The rotors spun, lifting dust and dreams into the air, carrying them toward a future none of them could have predicted, a future born from a missed exam, a broken ankle, and the unexpected landing of hope in the form of a helicopter in their yard.